The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. This is program number 850. Coming to you on Monday, the 19th of December, 2016. Well, on this program, I will speak to you on this subject, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all. Not really a legal topic, but an end of year round off, because, as you well know, the next 2 Mondays consecutively will be public holidays. So the next time The Law and You will be on the air will be Monday the 9th of January 2017, DV, Deo Volenti, if the Lord is willing. So I just want to devote this program to saying Merry Christmas to everybody and wishing everybody a blessed New Year, bright and prosperous. Let me begin by sending out my condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. And you know, the old people have a saying, who feels it knows it. Some put it the other way around. Who knows it, feels it. It is not until you have gone through the loss of a close family member that you can really understand the empty void that a death in the family leaves with those who are still alive. And that is why I try my best to go to as many funerals as I can manage. Because every single person who attends a funeral is a source of strength to those who are mourning. Let me also wish all the very best to one of our shut-in sisters, Sister Althea Peters, otherwise known as Nan, who has been hospitalized for the past few weeks. She is chronically ill, and every now and then she is admitted to the hospital with various complaints. Sister Nan, at this festive season, let me wish you God's richest blessings, and let me pray that the Lord will send His ministering angels to be with you. In the same breath, my best wishes go out to our patriarch, His Excellency King Edmund John of Belmont. Bishop, we are all praying for you, and we admire your fighting spirit. I hope one of these days I will tell you some more about this remarkable man of God, a humble man from the bowels of the earth, but a stalwart in the kingdom. Mother Matt, I hope your knees will give you a little ease. And all the best to you and Anno and the whole family. And all the brethren of the St. Elizabeth Spiritual Baptist Church and all spiritual Baptists everywhere and all Christians everywhere. I send my greetings. Now, last week, those of you who looked at the program would recall that I had some very strong complimentary words to say about the workers of CWSA and VINNEC for the magnificent job they have been doing after every disaster to restore these facilities to normalcy. And I was chided that I didn't say anything about the workers of Bragsa and the workers of Nemo. So I wish to correct that and to say thank you to all Braxarians, that is those at Bragsa, and all Nemonians, that is those at Nemo, for the magnificent work which we take for granted in a lot of cases, but which you do event after weather event. Thank you all very much. And let us pray that we would not have occasion this Christmas season to call out your services on emergency duties. But this morning some rain fell. Boy, wow. Just at about the time I was getting into town, I said, oh, here we go again. But the good Lord knows best, and He would most likely spare us. Excuse me. Now, on Thursday last week, we had the launching at French's house of Dr. Fraser's voluminous work. That is a history book, not a work of fiction, not a work of poetry, but a book of facts. And those who are interested in the history of this country, especially the history towards the end of colonialism, ought to get hold of a copy of Dr. Fraser's book dealing with the riots in St. Vincent and the Grenadines around 1935, and he traced the period before the riots right up to adult suffrage in 1951. The book has been thoroughly researched, packed with references and footnotes and sources. A worthy product of the prodigious intellect of Dr. Adrian Fraser, a man from Barely, let me remind you, whose mother was my preschool teacher. In fact, Adrian and I were toddlers because we were born in the same year at his mother's preschool in Barely when we were about 3 or 4 years old. So I'm very proud of the brother. He has written before, and we hope he'll write again, because at the launching the suggestion was made that perhaps he should attempt a history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, over the years we've had to do with Mr. Duncan's Brief History of St. Vincent, and that was a very useful book full of information. But the definitive study that would come from a trained researcher like Dr. Adrian Fraser is surely needed, and we hope that that will be forthcoming. All of those who attended the launching were quite satisfied, and I will treasure that addition to the historiography of the Caribbean. Thank you, Adrian. Now, my next jotting has to do with the wedding on Saturday gone of Mr. and Mrs. Andrew Williams. Now, if I just say Mr. and Mrs. Williams, a lot of you would know who Mrs. Williams is. She is none other than the person we know as Susan John. But on the invitation, you would have seen Heather John, that being her real given birth certificate name. But Susan is the name by which everybody in the Belmont Southwood area know Susan. Congratulations to both of you. You had a very lovely reception at the Evesham Learning Resource Center. And as I call the name of the Evesham Learning Resource Center, perhaps I should draw to the attention of the authorities that there is an urgent and dire need for a street lamp in the vicinity of the entrance and exit. Same entrance is the same exit. Because when I came out of there a little after 7, it was practically impossible to see where I was going. And thanks to somebody who turned on their cell phone. Pitch dark. And when I looked up, there was a lamppost nearby, but it has no light in it. The one with the light is further down in the corner. Well, I hope somebody in authority would hear what I have said and would make an effort to put a light at the entrance to the Evesham Learning Resource Center. It's dangerous. But that was just by the way, just an aside. So, Andrew and Heather, otherwise known to us as Susan, congratulations for the decision to go forward in holy matrimony. And I, for one, hope that the step you have taken would be an encouragement to many of those who know you, but who are not yet in lawful wedlock. You know, we like to pride ourselves in the Caribbean that the vast majority of unions are non-marital unions. But when you really think about it, there's a lot to be said for the institution of marriage, called in the good book the estate, the holy estate of marriage. And let us hope that many would follow your example. Excuse me again. Now I want to make some remarks about what 2017 is likely to bring forth internationally. The election of President-elect Mr. Donald Trump holds the key to world affairs during the coming year. And those who are fortunate enough to live through the year may be in for a rough ride. Because I followed the campaign, the presidential campaign in the United States with keen interest. As I told you on the program I did right after the elections in America, I had warned one of my friends. From the time Mr. Trump launched his bid for the nomination of the Republican Party, I said to my good friend Vincent Ryan, Vincent, watch Trump. He is likely to go all the way to the presidency. Vincent said, no, there's no way he could beat Hillary, and so on and so on. And Mr. Trump is an extraordinarily gifted politician, but he proclaimed himself as a non-politician. That is the first element of his genius. Because the things he did during the campaign and said, in past US presidential bids, many a would-be candidate have fallen by the wayside because of this or that revelation about their personal life. Not so Mr. Trump. The more things were revealed about him, the more popular he appeared to have become. The more outrageous things he said, the greater his popularity. Now, I know many people will say that Mrs. Clinton won the popular vote because she got almost 3 million votes more than did Mr. Trump. But the American system is not based on counting the total number of votes cast by Americans. It is based on the electoral system, and in order for us to understand it, we just have to think of our constituency system here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There were 2 recent occasions in which a party won the majority of the popular votes but didn't form the government, because in St. Vincent and the Grenadines you form a government based on the majority of seats, not the overall majority of votes. So in our 15-seat legislature, once a party gets 8 seats, it forms the government, even though the party with 7 seats would have got more popular votes than the one with 8 seats. Think of the American electoral system like that. In fact, today is the day when the real voting takes place, that is, the voting of the Electoral College. Now, I have not listened to any newscast since I left home this morning at about 7 o'clock. But I am sure by now, and I'm speaking now, it is going on after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I am sure that the airways are full of news about what happened when the Electoral College met, because the news last night was that some of the electors had been receiving hundreds of mails urging them not to cast their vote for Mr. Trump. Now, to give you a further explanation without going into that, and there's a reason why I'm so detailed in this prognosis of 2017, is that in the United States, they have 50 states. Each state has a number of electors. And the candidate who wins the majority vote in a state is entitled to the votes of the number of electors in that state. Together they come to, I think, 528 electors. So never mind Mrs. Clinton won the popular vote by nearly 3 million over Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump won the majority of electors and therefore became the president-elect of the United States of America. And I'm sure nothing extraordinary happened in the voting to disturb that. But what is interesting is the man, President-elect Trump. He is an extraordinary figure, almost totally unpredictable. He is one of the few politicians I know on the world stage who can say what he feels like and get away with it. In fact, he can say one thing today and something totally contrary tomorrow. And he explains it by a witticism. He is a remarkable man. He appeared to have hypnotized the bulk of the United States electors, or voters, I should say, and has already made some moves in foreign policy, which I fear threaten to destabilize what we know as the global order as we know it today. Now, we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in the OECS and in the Caribbean, we are vulnerable to foreign crises. Look at what happened in 2008. Economic crisis, and we suffer tremendously because we are resource poor. What was thought to be the Cold War thaw under previous presidents, leading right up to President Obama, now threatens to erupt. So that from all I am reading and hearing on the television channels, and I have a voracious appetite for news and news commentary. Seldom look at, but I don't look at sitcoms and soap operas and so on. I consider it a total misuse of my time. But I love to look at news and the commentary and the analyses. I look at the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, and then the other channels, the MSNBC, and occasionally at Fox News, but I can't take Fox News for too long because it is so obviously tilted that it's disturbing. And thanks to the internet, one can go on the internet and read practically any English language paper from any part of the world. It is fantastic. You can sit in front of your computer and read the Caribbean newspapers from every territory. If you want to know what's going on in St. Kitts, you can read the St. Kitts newspapers, Antigua, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana. The information revolution has made information available to all of us who have the time to sit and simply key in, Google something. You want to know about any country, you Google the name and all the information about that country. You could spend the whole day reading everything you want to know. You want to know about a particular personality in world affairs, you put in the name and you have hundreds of bits of information on any particular individual. So those who are interested in knowledge and who have a curiosity to find out what's going on in the world, the internet is fantastic. But the flip side of that is that the more one reads and the more one tries to put things together, the more concerned one becomes. And I am really concerned about the prospects for the world in 2017. Now, I am not a theologian by any stretch, but I have some acquaintance with theological matters. And from all that I have been hearing since I was a little child going to church and reading for myself in the Bible and Bible commentaries and various theological books, the unmistakable signs are present that Christ is about to come back. Now, this is not a religious program. You would have heard the gentleman on Encounter to whom I listen religiously, to use a pun. You would have heard them speaking about the same thing for the last few programs. But even a nodding acquaintance with the scriptures would leave you with the feeling, look, no, mankind has reached a stage where surely the coming of the Lord is imminent. And I fear that the happenings on the global scene, United States of America, Russia, China, the turmoil in the Middle East, I feel we are in for some rough times. And in our situation as little defenseless islands, not that we're in danger of being invaded by anybody, but the economic fallout from these global scenarios are likely to impinge on us in a very serious way. When you speak with your relatives and friends abroad, as you do, now that everybody can communicate with WhatsApp and all other technological means of communication, listen to what they are telling you, and they will tell you how things are getting rough wherever they are, whether it's United States, Canada, England, or other parts of the world. Things are getting hard. Some of our people are losing their jobs. Again, we do not know what Mr. Trump would do about the threats he made to deport so-called illegal aliens. But if he carries out his threat, we are in danger of having a lot of Vincentians being sent back home, because a lot of Vincentians are in the United States of America illegally. I don't say that to condemn them, because they have gone there to try and make a living. But unfortunately, some of them are there illegally, and if Mr. Trump goes through with his threat to deport millions, some of our people would find themselves scraped up and sent back to St. Vincent, and to do what here? Already we have seen the influence of the deportation of criminals from the United States back to the Caribbean. We don't want anybody to tell us that that must be one of the reasons for the escalation in crime. So as I wish us all a happy new year, I do so with a heavy heart. I would urge those who have not yet sought solace of a spiritual kind to do so, because we cannot sustain ourselves on our own resources. We need our spiritual batteries to be charged and recharged to cope with the pressures of modern life. So as we celebrate the birth of Christ, and there again I wholly agree with the comments made by the Encounter team last week. Why do people have to be negative and say they're not recognizing Christmas because there's no evidence that Jesus Christ was born on the 25th of December? I agree that the evidence is scanty to support a 25th of December birth, but if we accept the fact that he was born, then what is wrong with choosing a day, and having chosen a day, what is wrong with the world celebrating that day on a particular day? He was born. Unless we are of a different religious persuasion, or of no religious persuasion at all. So I don't see this big fuss about, oh, Christmas is this and so on and carrying on. And some churches said they're not having a Christmas service because they don't believe in Christmas. I suppose people have to follow their own inclination, but I don't see the fuss. Just like Good Friday, big controversy. Christ was not crucified on a Friday. The point is he was crucified. So what does it matter whether it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or? But my researches in the scriptures convinced me that he was crucified on Good Friday. Other people see it differently. Power to them. They know what they believe, and the rest of us know what we believe and why we believe it. So, hope I'm not sounding too gloomy, but and that is the reason why Christ was born, to lift us up, to give us hope for a better tomorrow, if we do the right things. So once again, a blessed Christmas to one and all, and if it is the will of the Lord, a bright and prosperous New Year. Until we see, God willing, on the 9th of January, may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You. A look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You. Presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.